The fluorescent lights of the Department of Labor hearing room cast harsh shadows across the polished mahogany table where Vivian Cross sat, flanked by 4 attorneys whose combined hourly rates could fund a small school district. She'd fired Marcus Thompson 18 hours after he'd saved her life. Now she was about to learn the cost of that decision. The administrative law judge, a black woman in her mid-50s with silver-streaked hair pulled into a severe bun, adjusted her reading glasses and fixed Vivian with a stare that could freeze magma. Behind Marcus Thompson in the gallery sat 73 black men and women whose faces Vivian had seen in termination files, but never in person. They'd come to watch her answer for every signature she'd signed. Ms. Cross, let me ensure I understand the timeline correctly. You terminated Marcus Thompson's employment on November 14th, approximately 18 hours after he prevented your abduction from the Cross Technologies parking garage. Is that accurate? Vivian's lead attorney, a white man whose Rolex caught the overhead lights, leaned forward. Your Honor, if I may clarify. The judge raised one hand, silencing him without breaking eye contact with Vivian. I asked Ms. Cross directly. Vivian smoothed the fabric of her navy Armani suit, the same one she'd worn to board meetings where she'd authorized terminations with a signature that took less than 3 seconds. Her throat felt lined with sand. Yes, that's correct. And prior to that incident, Mr. Thompson had also intervened when you were attacked at a Megamart supermarket 6 weeks earlier, correct? Yes. The judge tapped her pen against the file folder before her, the sound echoing in the silent courtroom. Help me understand something, Ms. Cross. Most people, when someone saves their life once, express gratitude. When someone saves their life twice, they might consider that person indispensable. Yet you fired Marcus Thompson. Why? Vivian's perfectly manicured fingers twisted together beneath the table. He overstepped his authority as a security consultant. His actions exposed Cross Technologies to liability. His actions, the judge interrupted, her tone sharp enough to draw blood, prevented your kidnapping by armed assailants engaged in corporate espionage. The police report states he disarmed a man carrying a loaded 9mm handgun. Yet you classified this as overstepping authority? One of Vivian's attorneys cleared his throat. Your Honor, Ms. Cross had legitimate concerns about protocol violations. I'm examining Ms. Cross's judgment, Counselor. And what I see in front of me is a woman who fired a federal workplace safety inspector during an active investigation. The judge opened the folder, revealing security footage stills clipped to the first page. Mr. Thompson, you may enter. The door at the back of the courtroom opened. Vivian turned, and the breath left her lungs as if she'd been struck. Marcus Thompson walked down the center aisle in a charcoal suit that fit him like it had been tailored by someone who understood how fabric should move with a man's shoulders. Gone was the rumpled security guard uniform, the janitor's coveralls, the discount store polo shirts he'd worn while fixing her computer network. This version of Marcus moved with the quiet authority of someone who'd spent years in federal service, someone who understood power structures from the inside out. His eyes met hers for half a heartbeat. No anger burned there, just a calm, professional assessment that made her feel smaller than any rage could have. Mr. Thompson, the judge said as Marcus took his seat at the opposing table, thank you for joining us. Before we proceed with your testimony, I want to establish something for the record. When did you begin your undercover investigation of Cross Technologies? Marcus's voice carried the same measured cadence Vivian remembered from the parking garage when he'd talked down 2 armed men with nothing but words and positioning. July 15th, 3 months before the first incident at Megamart. And during that time, you worked as contract IT support for the first 6 weeks, then night security guard for the remainder. Vivian's attorney seized the opening. Your Honor, Mr. Thompson misrepresented his credentials to gain employment under false pretenses. Mr. Thompson, the judge said, ignoring the attorney entirely, presented proper federal identification upon his termination, and immediately filed a complaint with this office regarding obstruction of a federal investigation. The Department of Labor takes such complaints seriously, which is why we're here. She turned back to Vivian. Miss Cross, did you know Mr.
Thompson was a federal inspector?
Of course not. He was a security guard. He was a federal workplace safety inspector conducting an undercover investigation. His credentials were verified within 12 hours of his termination. The judge leaned back in her chair. What I find interesting is that you fired him anyway, even after he identified himself as federal law enforcement. The memory crashed over Vivian like a wave of ice water. Marcus standing in her office, Rebecca Winters beside him, pulling out a leather credentials case with a gold Department of Labor badge. His voice, still calm, still professional. Miss Cross, I'm required to inform you that I'm a federal inspector conducting an investigation into workplace safety retaliation. Terminating me at this juncture constitutes obstruction. She'd laughed, actually laughed, because the absurdity of it had short-circuited her ability to process reality.
You expect me to believe that a man who mops floors and changes printer cartridges is a federal inspector? Marcus had closed the credentials case without changing expression. What you believe doesn't alter the facts, ma'am. I'll be filing my report with the regional director today. You'll receive notification of any formal proceedings. Then he'd walked out of her office, and she'd turned to Rebecca, with triumph singing through her veins. Get legal on the phone. I want to know how we sue him for fraud. Now, sitting in this federal hearing room with 4 lawyers who'd billed her company $600,000 in preparation fees, that triumph tasted like ashes soaked in battery acid. The judge flipped through several pages of documentation. Let's go back to the beginning, shall we? 6 weeks earlier, Megamart Supermarket on Riverside Drive. Mr. Thompson, please describe what you witnessed. 6 weeks earlier, Marcus had stood in the canned goods aisle of Megamart, with Riley's small hand tucked in his, her shopping list clutched in her other fist like a sacred text. The supermarket smelled like floor cleaner and rotting produce from the discount bin, fluorescent lights humming overhead with a frequency that made his teeth ache. The blue crayon she'd used to write milk, bread, small bear had smudged slightly where her palm had pressed against the paper. Daddy, can we get the bear with the purple ribbon? Emma at school has the pink one, and purple is better than pink. Marcus squeezed her hand gently, his attention divided between his daughter's hopeful eyes and the 2 men 3 aisles over who moved with the kind of coordination that made his security training scream warnings. We'll see, baby girl. Let me grab the milk first. The red cord bracelet Riley had braided during one of his panic attacks pressed against his wrist as he reached for a gallon of 2%. The rough texture grounded him, same as it had 2 years ago, when grief had turned breathing into a combat sport, and his 8-year-old daughter had placed her small hands over his racing heart. The bracelet smelled faintly of Riley's strawberry shampoo, mixed with something else, a ghost of Kendra's cocoa butter lotion that had somehow survived 2 years of washing. Or maybe Marcus just imagined it, because grief worked that way, creating sense memories from desperate hope. Feel my breathing, Daddy. Slow, like mine. Kendra's voice, speaking through their daughter. Kendra, who'd never made it home from the hospital after a drunk driver with a 7-figure bank account and a law firm on retainer had run a red light at 60 miles per hour. The prosecution had offered a plea deal, $5,000 fine, no jail time. The judge had accepted it without blinking. Marcus had learned that day that justice wasn't blind. She just closed her eyes when money talked loud enough. Daddy, you're squeezing too hard. He loosened his grip immediately, crouching to Riley's eye level.
Sorry, baby. Daddy's mind went somewhere else for a second. Mama? Yeah, Mama. Riley pressed her forehead against his, a gesture she'd invented somewhere in the fog of grief that had swallowed the months after the funeral. She'd want us to get the bear. She always said rewards matter. Your mama was right about most things. Marcus straightened, keeping Riley's hand secure in his. Come on, let's... The woman's scream cut through the ambient noise of the supermarket like a blade through silk. Marcus's head snapped toward the wine section, where Vivian Cross stood frozen as two men closed in from opposite directions. The taller one's hand moved inside his jacket, and Marcus's training cataloged the motion before conscious thought kicked in. Reaching for a weapon. Utility knife, probably, based on the shape of the bulge. Partner blocking the exit route. Military precision in civilian clothing. Riley. Marcus's voice dropped to the tone he'd used during his Port Authority days when he'd taught conflict de-escalation to officers 3 times his age. I need you to do something very important for me. Her blue eyes went wide and solemn. A mission? Exactly like a mission. See that display of paper towels behind you? I need you to stand there and count all the red things you can see. Don't move until I come back. Can you do that? Like a spy? Like the best spy ever. Start counting when I walk away. Riley nodded, already turning toward the paper towel display with the fierce concentration she brought to everything from math homework to building blanket forts. Marcus touched the red bracelet once more, feeling Kendra's presence in the rough fibers Riley had twisted together during one of his worst moments. The taller man pressed something against Vivian Cross's side. Her champagne bottle slipped from her fingers, shattering against the linoleum in an explosion of glass and amber liquid. A woman nearby laughed, the sound harsh and bright with schadenfreude. Looks like the rich lady's having problems. Maybe if she wasn't so high and mighty all the time, someone might actually care. Marcus moved. Not running, because running drew attention and created panic. Just a purposeful walk that closed the distance between Riley's paper towel fortress and the wine section in 17 seconds. His mind automatically cataloged resources. Soda bottles on the end display, 2-liter size, full carbonation. Mop bucket near customer service, soapy water still sloshing from the janitor's last pass. Shopping carts that could serve as barriers or battering rams, depending on necessity. The shorter of the two men, Jason Mercer, Marcus realized with a jolt of recognition, had his hand on Vivian's elbow, steering her toward the service corridor that led to the loading docks. Marcus had trained Mercer 3 years ago at Port Authority, back when Mercer had been a dedicated security professional with a wife and kid to support. The budget cuts had hit Mercer's department hard. Last Marcus had heard, the man was doing contract work to keep his son in specialized therapy. How far had desperation pushed him? Walk with us toward the back exit. Nice and quiet. Mercer's voice carried just far enough for Marcus to hear. Make a sound and this gets messy for everyone. Vivian's eyes swept the gathered crowd, landing on face after face that turned away or pulled out phones to record rather than help. Please, someone. Marcus grabbed a 2-liter bottle of cola from the end display, shaking it hard while his other hand worked the cap loose. The pressurized liquid exploded in a geyser that caught the taller man square in the face, carbonation and artificial coloring turning his world into a stinging, blinding mess. You just picked the wrong father and daughter to threaten, gentlemen. The supermarket went silent. Every conversation stopped. Every phone camera pivoted. Somewhere in the background, Riley's voice counted, 14 red things, 15 red things. Mercer's head whipped toward Marcus, recognition flashing across his face. Cole?
Marcus Cole? It's Thompson now.
Marcus's shopping cart rolled forward with deceptive casualness, positioning itself between Vivian and the exit route. Took my wife's name after she died. Seemed right, since she was the better half of everything we built together. The taller man clawed at his eyes, stumbling backward into a wine rack. Bottles cascaded, adding the sharp percussion of breaking glass to the scene. Marcus moved the cart with surgical precision, the edge catching Mercer's knife hand at the exact nerve cluster that controlled grip strength. The utility knife clattered to the floor, its cheap blade retracting into the handle on impact. "Get down!" Marcus didn't raise his voice, but Vivian dropped immediately, corporate survival instincts recognizing real authority when they heard it. Mercer lunged, fist already swinging, but Marcus sidestepped and used the man's momentum against him. Redirect. Don't resist. Let physics do the work. Mercer's punch passed through empty air, and his own forward motion sent him stumbling. Marcus grabbed a handful of brown paper towels from the nearby dispenser, wrapping them around Mercer's wrists in a makeshift restraint that wouldn't hold forever, but would buy enough time. The taller man had recovered enough to reach inside his jacket again. Marcus upended the mop bucket, sending industrial floor cleaner and water spreading across the linoleum in a slick puddle. The man's feet went out from under him, his head connecting with the edge of a lower shelf with a sound like a hammer hitting a watermelon. 43 seconds from the first scream to both attackers neutralized on the floor. Marcus's ribs throbbed where Mercer's initial swing had clipped him, but the adrenaline kept the pain at a manageable roar. An older black man in a Marine's cap stepped forward from the crowd, placing a boot on Mercer's chest with the casual authority of someone who'd done similar things in more serious circumstances. "Stay down, son. You've made enough bad choices today." "Daddy?" Riley's voice cut through the moment. "I counted 23 red things. Did I do good?" Marcus knelt beside Vivian, who was still crouched behind the wine display with her expensive dress stained and her carefully styled hair disheveled. "Are you hurt, ma'am?" She shook her head, unable to speak, her eyes wide with shock and something that might have been the first authentic fear she'd experienced in years. "Then you might want to stand up. Police will be here soon, and they'll have questions." The Marine, his name tag read R. Mitchell, helped Marcus secure both attackers with zip ties one of the store employees produced from a back office. Police sirens wailed closer, cutting through the murmur of the crowd that had gone from indifferent to invested the moment their phones had something worth recording. "Good work, son." Raymond Mitchell extended a hand. "Haven't seen civilian intervention that clean since I left the service." "Port Authority training." Marcus shook the offered hand, noting the firm grip and the way Mitchell's eyes cataloged details. Fellow professional recognizing fellow professional. "Security specialist before I moved into IT work." Mitchell's gaze flicked to Vivian, then back to Marcus. "You know who that is?" "Cross Technology's CEO. I did contract work there about 6 months ago." Marcus kept his voice neutral, but something in his chest tightened. The memory of Vivian's voice, sharp and dismissive, echoing through the server room. Why do they keep sending me these people? The slow ones who can't follow simple instructions. He'd been configuring her network security at the time, installing updates that would protect her company from the kind of cyber attacks that bankrupted competitors. She'd been annoyed that his equipment cart had brushed her mahogany desk. "Be careful. You damage something expensive, you'll pay it off forever." Marcus had researched Cross Technologies before taking that IT contract. Vivian Cross, Stanford engineering graduate, built the company from a small medical device manufacturer into an industry contender. Impressive patent portfolio, innovation awards, industry recognition. Nothing in the public record hinted at what he'd later discover: systematic silencing of dissent dressed up as performance management. Now, watching her stand on shaking legs with soda and wine staining her designer dress, Marcus felt something complicated twist in his gut. Not quite satisfaction, not quite pity. Something closer to the weary recognition that powerful people rarely learned lessons the first time. "Daddy!" Riley appeared at his side, throwing her arms around his waist. "You made the bad men fall down, just like in the movies, but with soda." Marcus pulled her close, breathing in the strawberry scent of her shampoo. "You did perfect, baby girl. Counted all the red things and stayed safe. I'm so proud of you." The first police officer through the door took one look at the scene, 2 men zip-tied on the floor, broken bottles everywhere, and a calm black man in a discount store polo shirt standing over them, and his hand moved toward his weapon. "Sir, step away from—" "Officer." Marcus raised both hands slowly, keeping them visible. "I'm the one who called this in. I have documentation on my phone, timestamps, photos, witness statements. The 2 men on the floor attempted to abduct that woman with weapons. I intervened using non-lethal force and minimal property damage." The officer's eyes narrowed. "You just happened to have documentation ready?" "I document everything." Marcus pulled out his phone with careful, deliberate movements. Former security training specialist. Old habits. The photos show these 2 men coordinating their approach, positioning themselves to intercept the victim, displaying weapons, all time-stamped before the physical altercation began. The officer examined Marcus's phone, his expression shifting from suspicion to surprise. "You photographed them stalking her before they even made contact?" "Pattern recognition. They moved like professionals. Military coordination. I flagged them as potential threats and started building evidence in case law enforcement needed it." Another officer approached Vivian, who was giving her statement in a voice that shook despite her obvious attempts to control it. Marcus caught fragments. "2 men. Knife against my ribs. Everyone just watched. He came out of nowhere." Riley tugged on Marcus's shirt. "Daddy, is the pretty lady okay?" "I think so, baby. Just scared." "She was mean to you when you fixed her computers. Emma's mom told my teacher that the cross lady fires people for fun." Marcus crouched down, meeting Riley's eyes. "Sometimes people are mean because they're scared of things they don't understand. And sometimes they're mean because nobody ever taught them better. We don't know which one she is yet." "But you saved her anyway." "That's what we do when someone needs help. Doesn't matter if they were mean before." Riley considered this with the gravity of a child working through complex moral equations. "Mama would say that's the right thing." "Your mama would say exactly that." Marcus's throat tightened. Kendra had spent her life as a doctor, patching up people who couldn't afford to pay, who sometimes didn't even say thank you. She'd called it the work anyway, the thing you did because doing it mattered more than whether anyone noticed or appreciated it. A detective arrived 20 minutes later, a middle-aged black woman with tired eyes and a notepad that had seen better days. She took Marcus's statement with the thoroughness of someone who'd learned not to take first impressions at face value. "Mr. Thompson, you're telling me you identified these men as threats, documented their behavior, and intervened to prevent a kidnapping using supermarket supplies and security training from—" She checked her notes. "A job you left 3 years ago?" "That's accurate, Detective." "And you just happened to be shopping with your daughter when this occurred?" Marcus gestured to the shopping cart, where milk, bread, and a small purple bear sat among the debris. "We were finishing Riley's shopping list. The bear was her reward for straight A's." The detective's expression softened fractionally as she looked at Riley, who was showing another officer her list with the blue crayon annotations. "You could have just called 911 and kept your daughter safe." "I did call 911. Check the logs."
But by the time dispatch routed it and officers arrived, those men would have had Ms. Cross in a vehicle headed to a secondary location. Kidnapping statistics show that once a victim is transported, survival rates drop by 73%. You know kidnapping statistics? I know a lot of statistics. Comes with the security background. Marcus kept his voice even, professional. Not defensive, not aggressive. Just a man stating facts. I also know that my daughter was watching. Children learn more from what we do than what we say. I needed her to see that when you can help, you should. The detective made a note, her pen moving across the page with practiced efficiency. These men were professionals. Corporate espionage, according to preliminary questioning. They were hired to extract proprietary information from Ms. Cross. I suspected corporate targeting based on their coordination and the specific victim selection. Marcus glanced at Vivian, who was now wrapped in a blanket despite the store's comfortable temperature, shock setting in as adrenaline faded. Cross Technologies develops medical diagnostic equipment. Their latest AI screening technology could be worth hundreds of millions. Kidnapping the CEO would be leverage for technological secrets or ransom for competitive advantage. The detective's eyebrow rose. That's a pretty sophisticated analysis for someone who fixes computers. I read, and I pay attention. Marcus met her gaze steadily. Is there anything else you need from me, detective? My daughter has school tomorrow, and she's had enough excitement for one night. We'll need you to come down to the station tomorrow to sign a formal statement. But Mr. Thompson? The detective handed him her card. Thank you. Most people would have walked away. You didn't. Most people aren't raising a daughter who's watching them make choices about what kind of person to be. As the detective moved away to coordinate with other officers, Raymond Mitchell appeared beside Marcus again. You handled that well. Both the takedown and the police. Man with your training could do a lot more than fix computers. I do what I need to do to be home when Riley gets out of school. Marcus watched his daughter draw pictures on the back of her shopping list, seemingly unbothered by the chaos around her. Kids were resilient like that. Or maybe she just trusted that her daddy would keep her safe no matter what happened. Night security pays better than day shifts, and IT contracts fill in the gaps. I run a security consulting firm. Mitchell pulled out a business card. Small operation, mostly training for corporate clients, always looking for people who can actually handle themselves instead of just talking theory. Flexible hours. You set your own schedule. Marcus took the card, noting the firm name and contact information. I appreciate the offer, but my schedule's pretty tight with Riley. Family comes first. I respect that. Mitchell glanced at the officers processing the scene, then back to Marcus. But keep the card anyway. World needs more men like you teaching others how to handle themselves, how to protect people without becoming the aggressor. A commotion near the entrance drew their attention. News crews had arrived, cameras already rolling, reporters scenting blood in the water. One spotted Vivian and made a beeline toward her, microphone extended like a weapon. Marcus stepped between the reporter and Vivian without thinking, his body blocking the camera's line of sight. Ma'am needs some space. You can get statements from the police department's public information officer. The reporter, a young white woman with perfect hair and predatory eyes, pivoted immediately to Marcus. Sir, are you the one who stopped the attack? Witnesses are saying you took down 2 armed men with soda bottles and paper towels. Can you tell us? No comment. My daughter's here, and she doesn't need to be on the evening news. Marcus kept his voice firm, but not hostile. Please respect our privacy. But viewers want to know about the hero who... I'm not a hero. I'm a father who did what needed doing. Now please step back. The reporter opened her mouth to push further, but her cameraman, an older black man with salt and pepper hair, caught her attention and shook his head. She backed off,
frustration clear in the set of her shoulders. Riley appeared at Marcus's side, tugging on his hand. "Daddy, can we go home now? I want to show my bear to Mr. Whiskers." Mr. Whiskers was the cat Kendra had brought home 3 months before she died. A scraggly orange tabby with one bent ear and a personality like sandpaper wrapped around steel wool. Riley had named him after Kendra's favorite childhood stuffed animal, creating a connection between past and present that sometimes made Marcus's chest ache. "Almost, baby girl. We need to pay for our groceries first, and then we can go home." The store manager, a nervous white man in his 40s who'd spent the entire incident hiding in his office, appeared with profuse apologies and an announcement that their groceries were free, of course, complimentary, the least they could do. Would they like anything else? Perhaps some flowers, or... "The milk, bread, and bear are fine." Marcus kept Riley close as they navigated through the crowd that had formed, phones still recording, people still staring. "We appreciate the gesture." In the parking lot, Marcus buckled Riley into her booster seat and handed her the purple bear. She clutched it immediately, pressing her face into its soft fur. "Daddy?" "Yeah, baby?" "Was that scary? What you did?" Marcus closed his eyes for a moment, feeling the phantom weight of Mercer's punch against his ribs, the spike of adrenaline that had turned the world sharp and bright and dangerous. "A little bit. But I knew what I was doing, and I knew I had to keep you safe while helping that lady." "You were very brave." "So were you. Counting red things and staying put like I asked. That's trust. And trust is the bravest thing there is." Riley pulled out her blue crayon and shopping list, adding careful letters below the original items. Marcus watched in the rearview mirror as she underlined her addition 3 times, same as she'd done with small bear. "What'd you write, baby girl?" "Daddy is brave." Riley looked up, meeting his eyes in the mirror. "So I don't forget." Marcus's vision blurred. He touched the red bracelet, feeling the rough fibers Kendra's daughter had woven to keep him breathing when grief made his lungs forget how. "We're bigger than the sky, aren't we?" "Bigger than the sky," Riley repeated, the phrase they'd created together in the darkness after Kendra's funeral. Their promise to each other that love didn't end just because breathing did. The drive home took 15 minutes through streets that felt surreal in their normalcy. Traffic lights changed. People walked dogs. A teenager on a skateboard wove through a parking lot. The world kept spinning like nothing world-changing had happened, even though Marcus's hands still shook slightly on the steering wheel. Their apartment building sat in a neighborhood that politely avoided words like struggling in favor of transitioning or up and coming. The rent was $850 a month, which ate most of Marcus's IT contract income and left the night security checks to cover food, utilities, and Riley's after-school program. The bank account currently held $68.32. Payday was Friday. They'd make it. They always made it. Marcus carried the groceries while Riley clutched her bear, and together they climbed 2 flights of stairs to apartment 3C. Mr. Whiskers waited inside, expressing his displeasure at their delayed return through strategic ankle attacks and aggrieved meowing. "I know, buddy, we're late. Riley had an adventure." Marcus set the groceries on the counter while Riley gave the cat a detailed explanation of the evening's events, complete with dramatic reenactments using her bear as a prop. The notification chime on Marcus's phone pulled his attention. Text message from an unknown number. "Mr. Thompson, this is Rebecca Winters,
Chief of Security for Cross Technologies. Ms. Cross would like to speak with you at your earliest convenience. Please call. Marcus deleted the message. Whatever Vivian Cross wanted could wait until after Riley was fed, bathed, and tucked into bed with her new bear and Mr. Whiskers curled at her feet. His other phone, the one issued by the Department of Labor, the one that stayed locked in a drawer except for check-ins with his supervisor, buzzed with a different message. Thompson, saw you on the news. Cover status? Marcus waited until Riley was occupied with building a fort for her bear before responding. Intact. Incident unrelated to investigation. Will monitor. The reply came immediately. Cross will offer you job. Take it. Access to executive floor equals investigation gold mine. Marcus stared at the screen for a long moment. Taking a job from Vivian Cross meant accepting help from a woman who dismissed him as one of these people 6 months ago. It meant putting himself in proximity to someone whose casual cruelty had reminded him why he'd taken this undercover assignment in the first place. But it also meant access to personnel files, security logs, and the kind of documentation that could prove the pattern his supervisor had only suspected. 73 black employees terminated over 6 years, all after filing safety complaints or discrimination reports, all dismissed as performance issues by an HR department that reported directly to Vivian Cross. Marcus typed, "Understood. Will maintain cover." He locked the phone away again, sealing it behind the false panel in his closet where Riley would never find it. Then he made mac and cheese from a box, adding frozen peas because Kendra's voice in his head insisted vegetables mattered, and listened to Riley explain why purple bears were scientifically superior to all other colors of bears. Later, after Riley was asleep and the apartment was silent except for Mr. Whiskers' intermittent snoring, Marcus sat at the kitchen table with bills spread before him. $850 for rent, $140 for utilities, $90 for Riley's after-school program, $60 for his phone plan. The numbers marched across the page like soldiers, disciplined and unforgiving. The red cord bracelet pressed against his wrist as he calculated, recalculated, found the same deficit he always found. $37 short this month. He could push the electric bill to next month, pay the late fee, stretch the grocery budget even thinner, or he could take Rebecca Winters' call tomorrow and accept whatever job Vivian Cross wanted to offer as apology or damage control or whatever motivated a CEO to acknowledge the people she usually ignored. Marcus pulled out the third phone, the one that had been Kendra's, the one he couldn't bring himself to cancel, even though the monthly fee was another drain on resources he couldn't afford. Her voicemail greeting still played when he called it. "This is Dr. Thompson. I can't take your call right now, but leave a message and I'll get back to you as soon as I'm done saving the world, one patient at a time." He didn't leave a message, just listened to her voice, let it wash over him like a baptism in reverse, pulling him back toward the man he'd been before drunk drivers and federal investigations and supermarket heroics. "I don't know if I'm doing this right," he said into the silence after the beep. "The job, the investigation, raising Riley alone. Some days I feel like I'm barely keeping all the plates spinning. But tonight she wrote, 'Daddy is brave' on her shopping list. And I thought you'd want to know that she's okay. That we're okay. That I'm trying to teach her what you taught me about doing the work anyway, whether people notice or thank you or not." The beep sounded, followed by silence, followed by the automated voice. "This mailbox is full. To delete old messages, press 7. Marcus stared at the phone screen. 2 years of one-way conversations. 2 years of leaving messages Kendra would never hear, as if keeping her voicemail active could keep her tethered to this world. But she wasn't tethered. She was gone. and he was holding on to a phone bill he couldn't afford to maintain an illusion that helped no one, least of all Riley, who deserved a father moving forward instead of one frozen in grief.
He pressed 7. Deleted every message he'd left over 24 months. Birthday wishes, Riley updates, confessions of loneliness, promises to make her proud. Each deletion felt like a small death, but also like exhaling after holding his breath too long. Then he navigated to the account settings and canceled the phone service. The monthly fee would go toward Riley's new apartment fund, the one that would give her a room for science experiments and a father who honored Kendra's memory by living rather than by mourning. Kendra would have approved. She'd always been practical about moving forward.
"Grief is love with nowhere to go," she'd told him once, after losing a patient she'd fought for months to save. "So you find somewhere new to put it. You build something. You help someone. You keep going."
He was keeping going. Tomorrow, Rebecca Winters would call. Tomorrow, he'd accept a job that would let him help 73 people whose suffering mattered as much as his own. That was love with somewhere to go. Tonight, he just listened to the sounds of his daughter sleeping safe in the next room and touched the red bracelet Riley had made to keep him breathing when the world tried to steal his air. "We're bigger than the sky, baby girl, even when the sky feels like it's crushing down on both of us." Rebecca Winters arrived at Marcus's apartment at 7:45 Friday morning, before Riley had finished her cereal or Marcus had managed his second cup of coffee. The knock came precisely 3 measured raps that suggested military training or corporate conditioning. Through the peephole, Marcus recognized her from Cross Technologies, the woman who'd overseen his background check when he'd applied for the IT contract 6 months ago. He opened the door, with Riley visible behind him at the kitchen table, insurance against any conversation veering into territory an 8-year-old shouldn't witness. "Mr. Thompson," Rebecca extended her hand, her grip firm enough to communicate competence without performative aggression. "I apologize for the early intrusion. May I have 10 minutes of your time? My daughter has school, and I'm making breakfast." Marcus didn't move from the doorway. "You could have called." "I tried. You deleted my message." Rebecca's expression held no judgment, just professional acknowledgement of tactical maneuvering. "Cross Technologies would like to offer you a position. Security consultant, focusing on executive protection protocols. Salary $145,000 annually, full benefits, flexible scheduling to accommodate parental responsibilities." The number landed like a fist to Marcus's solar plexus. 145,000 would erase the monthly deficit calculations, the late fee Russian roulette, the grocery store arithmetic that turned every trip into a budgeting exercise. Riley could have new shoes when she needed them, instead of when the old ones literally fell apart. They could move to a building where the heat worked consistently, and the landlord fixed things without 3 weeks of pestering. That's generous compensation for someone who fixes printers. Marcus kept his voice neutral, giving nothing away. Suspiciously generous. The board reviewed security footage from Megamart. Your threat assessment, intervention timing, and force calibration demonstrated expertise significantly above standard private security levels. Rebecca pulled a tablet from her briefcase, displaying a contract with Cross Technologies letterhead. "We're also establishing an educational fund for Riley, complete through undergraduate studies. This is separate from your employment, non-contingent, irrevocable, regardless of your job status." Marcus's hands tightened on the doorframe. Riley's college fund had been one of the casualties of Kendra's medical bills and funeral expenses. He'd planned to rebuild it slowly, $5,000 a year if he could manage, knowing it would never be enough, and doing it anyway because the alternative was admitting defeat. Why? The question came out harder than intended.
6 months ago, Ms. Cross treated me like I was furniture, with an annoying tendency to exist in her peripheral vision. Now she wants to pay me more than most of her mid-level managers make? Rebecca's professional mask slipped fractionally, revealing something that might have been respect or sympathy, or both. The viral video has created certain optics challenges. A CEO dismissing contract workers while the man she belittled saves her life with supermarket supplies? It's not the narrative Cross Technologies wants associated with its brand. So this is damage control.
This is recognition that we made mistakes in how we treated you, combined with genuine need for your expertise.
Rebecca met his eyes directly. I won't insult your intelligence by pretending altruism drives corporate decisions. But the offer stands, regardless of motivation. And Mr. Thompson, between us, the company needs what you have.
Which is?
The ability to see threats before they materialize. The skill to neutralize them without creating bigger problems. The judgment to protect people even when they haven't earned your protection. Rebecca closed the tablet. You don't have to decide now. But Miss Cross would like to meet with you personally. Today, if possible. Riley appeared at Marcus's elbow, purple bear tucked under one arm. Is that the lady from TV? The one Daddy saved? I work for her, sweetie. Rebecca crouched to Riley's eye level with the ease of someone who'd spent time around children. Your daddy was very brave.
We'd like to make sure people stay safe, so he doesn't have to be quite so brave quite so often.
Daddy's always brave. He taught me about breathing when things get scary.
Riley held up her wrist, showing a matching red cord bracelet she'd made for herself.
See? We're bigger than the sky.
Rebecca's expression softened genuinely.
That's beautiful. Did you make those yourself? I made Daddy's when he was sad about Mama dying. He made mine after I had a bad dream about the car accident. Riley's matter-of-fact delivery carried the weight of a child who'd processed trauma through craft projects and bedtime conversations. Red means love and courage. We wear them so we remember. Marcus placed a hand on Riley's shoulder, grounding himself in her presence. Baby, go finish your cereal. We need to leave for school in 20 minutes. After Riley returned to the kitchen, Rebecca straightened and handed Marcus a business card. My personal number. Call when you're ready to talk.
The offer doesn't expire, but I'd appreciate hearing from you within 48 hours.
I'll think about it. That's all I ask. Rebecca paused at the threshold. For what it's worth, I've worked in corporate security for 15 years. I've seen a lot of people claim expertise they don't have. You're not one of them. Whatever you decide, you'd be an asset to any organization smart enough to hire you. She left without waiting for a response, her footsteps measured and precise down the hallway. Marcus closed the door and leaned against it, feeling the weight of decisions he'd have to make pressing down like atmospheric pressure before a storm. Riley appeared with her backpack already slung over narrow shoulders. Are you going to take the job? I don't know yet. It's complicated. Because the lady was mean before? Marcus knelt, bringing himself to eye level with his daughter. Partly.
But also because taking help from someone who hurt you before means trusting they won't do it again. And trust is hard when people have already shown you who they are. Riley considered this with the gravity she brought to all moral puzzles. Mama used to say, people can surprise you, that everyone gets chances to be better than yesterday. Your mama was more forgiving than I am. Maybe that's why she made you wear the bracelet, so you'd remember to breathe instead of staying angry. Riley touched the red cords on both their wrists. We're bigger than the sky, Daddy. That means we have room for lots of things, even complicated things. The wisdom coming from an 8-year-old's mouth hit harder than Rebecca's professional pitch or the salary number that could transform their lives.
Marcus pulled Riley into a hug, breathing in strawberry shampoo and the simple clarity children brought to problems adults made unnecessarily complex.
When did you get so smart? I've always been smart. You just notice more when I say stuff you need to hear. Riley grinned, gap-toothed and unrepentant. Can we go to school now? I want to show Emma my purple bear before class starts. The drive to Riverside Elementary took 12 minutes through morning traffic that moved like cold honey. Marcus walked Riley to her classroom, watching her show the bear to a cluster of friends who gathered with appropriate appreciation for its purple superiority. Her teacher, Ms. Patterson, caught his eye and gestured him over. "Mr. Thompson, I saw the news last night." Miss Patterson kept her voice low, professional concern etched in the lines around her eyes. "Is Riley processing the incident okay? Sometimes children don't show stress immediately." "She's resilient. We talked about it, and she seems fine." Marcus watched Riley demonstrate the bear's sitting capabilities to an audience of second graders. "I'll keep monitoring, but I think she handled it better than I did."
Children often do. Their capacity for bouncing back outpaces adult trauma response.
Ms. Patterson hesitated, then added,
There was an incident yesterday I wanted to mention. Riley pushed another student during recess, but there was more to it.
Ms. Patterson pulled out her notes.
Riley didn't just push Emma. She gave quite a speech first. Let me read it. "My daddy works 2 jobs so I can have everything I need. He saves people and fixes computers and keeps me safe. People who do hard jobs aren't stupid. People who judge them are stupid." Then when Emma laughed, Riley pushed her.
Marcus's chest constricted with pride and concern in equal measure.
Ms. Patterson continued. The other parents were upset initially, but honestly, Emma needed to hear it. Her mother works 3 jobs as a home health aide, and Emma's internalized shame about that. Hearing Riley defend working people with such conviction made Emma think. They actually became friends by the end of recess. Marcus's chest tightened. "Is the other child okay?" "Completely fine. It was more surprise than force, but Riley was quite upset. She said," Miss Patterson checked her notes, "My daddy saves people and works 2 jobs and helps me with homework. He's not stupid. He's the smartest person I know." The words landed with the force of small arms fire, each syllable a reminder that Riley absorbed more than he'd realized, that his choices to work night security and take IT contracts weren't invisible sacrifices she didn't notice, that defending him mattered enough to break her usual conflict avoidance tendencies. "I'll talk to her about handling disagreements without physical contact." Marcus kept his voice steady, despite the emotion clawing up his throat. "Thank you for letting me know. Mr. Thompson, I don't think you need to worry too much. Riley has excellent judgment and strong emotional intelligence. Yesterday was an outlier, not a pattern." Miss Patterson smiled. "And between us, the other child's mother needed to hear that people in service professions deserve respect." Riley delivered that message quite effectively. Marcus left the school with his phone already ringing. Unknown number, but the caller ID showed a Washington, D.C. area code that made his federal training kick into high alert. He answered on the 3rd ring. "Thompson." "Marcus, it's Director Chen." His DOL supervisor's voice carried the edge it always did when something had shifted in an investigation. "I need you to explain why you're trending on Twitter with the hashtag Quiet Guardian." "Unplanned civilian intervention. 2 men attempted to kidnap Vivian Cross during my off-hours grocery shopping. I neutralized the threat. With your daughter present." Riley was safe. I positioned her away from the confrontation zone before engaging. Marcus pulled into a parking lot, putting the conversation on speaker while keeping his voice low. The situation required immediate response. Waiting for police response time would have resulted in successful abduction. Director Chen's sigh carried through the phone like wind through a tunnel.
Marcus, you just became the most visible undercover operative in the continental United States. Every news station in the tri-state area is running your face alongside Hero Security Guard Saves CEO. How exactly do you maintain cover when you're internet famous? Cross Technologies is offering me a security consultant position. Executive protection focus, direct access to personnel files and security protocols. The silence on the other end stretched long enough that Marcus checked his phone to confirm the call hadn't dropped. They're hiring you. Director Chen's tone shifted from irritation to strategic consideration. That's either the best luck we've had on this investigation or the worst possible complication. I'm leaning toward opportunity.
Vosé Winters, their chief of security, specifically mentioned executive floor access and protocol review. That puts me in position to document the pattern we've been tracking, or puts you under a microscope where any slip in cover gets you fired and potentially blacklisted from the industry. Director Chen paused. What's your read on Cross herself, the CEO? You've interacted with her directly now. Marcus thought about Vivian's expression in the Megamart parking lot, the shock and vulnerability bleeding through her usual armor of corporate authority. Complicated. She's got blind spots around class and race that manifest as dismissive arrogance. But she's also competent at her job and genuinely didn't see the kidnapping coming. The fear was real. Fear doesn't equal moral awakening. Don't mistake shock for transformation. I know the difference. Marcus pulled out of the parking lot, pointing his car toward the coffee shop where he'd agreed to meet Raymond Mitchell. I'm taking the job. It's the best access we're going to get to prove the systematic pattern. Then take it carefully. Document everything. Maintain your cover story. And for God's sake, don't do anything else heroic that ends up on the evening news. Director Chen's voice softened fractionally. How's Riley handling this? Better than I am. She pushed a classmate who insulted my work yesterday. That's Dr. Thompson's daughter. Kendra never let anyone diminish people doing honest labor. The mention of his wife's name carried the weight of shared history. Director Chen had attended Kendra's funeral, had stood in the rain while Marcus tried to keep breathing through a ceremony that felt like drowning. She'd be proud of you, Marcus. The investigation, raising Riley right, keeping your principles intact while working undercover. That's not easy. Nothing worth doing is. Marcus ended the call as he pulled into the coffee shop parking lot, where Raymond Mitchell's silver pickup truck already occupied a space near the entrance. Inside, Ray sat in a corner booth with 2 cups of coffee already cooling on the table. He gestured Marcus over with the economy of movement that marked career military. Figured you'd need caffeine after the morning you've probably had. Ray pushed 1 cup toward Marcus as he slid into the booth. Rebecca Winters called you yet? 7:45 this morning. How'd you know? Because I called her last night and told her she'd be making the biggest mistake of her career if she didn't offer you a job. Ray's expression held no apology, just tactical assessment. You've got skills most security professionals talk about but can't execute. Cross Technologies needs that, more than they realize. Marcus wrapped his hands around the coffee cup, letting the warmth seep into fingers that still felt cold from morning anxiety. You barely know me. We met during a supermarket crisis. I know enough. Saw how you positioned yourself between threat and civilians, how you used minimal force to maximum effect, how you documented everything before, during, and after. Ray leaned back, coffee cup held in calloused hands that had seen decades of hard work. I also know you're not what you appear to be. IT contractor and night security guard doesn't move like you move, doesn't assess threats like you assess those men. Marcus kept his expression neutral, giving nothing away. Port Authority training was thorough. Port Authority training ended 2 years ago, according to Rebecca's background check.
right after your wife passed. But you move like someone who's maintained operational readiness even after leaving that world. Like someone who's been in active crisis situations more recently than software installation requires. Ray's eyes held no accusation, just professional recognition.
I'm not asking you to confirm anything, just letting you know that whatever else you are, you've got an ally who understands operational security. The weight of the observation settled between them like a chess piece moved into strategic position. Ray Mitchell had just offered plausible deniability while simultaneously confirming he'd figured out Marcus wasn't just a civilian playing hero. The question was whether to acknowledge it or maintain cover. Marcus chose a middle path. Let's say, hypothetically, someone was conducting private investigation into corporate practices. What would you recommend their next move be? Hypothetically? Ray's mouth quirked into something almost like a smile. I'd say take the job, get inside, build relationships with people who've been there long enough to see patterns. And I'd say, talk to my nephew, who got fired from Cross Technologies 6 months ago, after reporting electrical hazards in the server room that nearly killed 3 technicians. Marcus's attention sharpened. Your nephew worked there?
Devin Mitchell, named after my father, which is why I take his firing personally. Carrying our family name while being treated like disposable labor hit different. Ray pulled out his phone, scrolling through contacts. He was IT support, same as you were. Documented safety violations, filed complaints with HR, got terminated for performance issues 3 weeks later. He's working retail now, barely making rent, still dealing with the depression that hit after they destroyed his career. I'd like to talk to him. Figured you would. He's working the evening shift at Best Buy in the tech department. Mention my name, he'll talk. Ray set his phone down, expression hardening. But Marcus, my nephew's story isn't unique. There's 72 others just like him. All black, all filed complaints, all terminated within months. Some are doing okay now. Others... He trailed off, the silence heavy with implications.
Others aren't. Marcus finished the thought, understanding settling in his gut like lead weights. How many have you talked to?
43 personally. Collected documentation from another 15 through phone calls. The rest are scattered across 3 states or disappeared into the gig economy, where they're hard to track. Ray's jaw tightened. I've been building this case for 6 years. Ever since my nephew got fired. Kept hoping someone with actual authority would notice the pattern. Then I saw you at Megamart, saw how you moved, and thought maybe someone finally did. The admission hung between them, half confession and half recruitment pitch. Ray Mitchell had been conducting his own investigation, gathering evidence without federal resources or legal protection, driven by family loyalty and the bone-deep understanding that injustice unchallenged was injustice endorsed. 6 years is a long time to carry that alone. Marcus measured his words carefully, still maintaining the fiction of plausible deniability. If someone were investigating, hypothetically, they'd want to see what you've collected. Compare patterns, verify documentation, build a comprehensive case. My truck. Right now. 6 banker boxes of files, recordings, statistical analysis, witness statements. Ray stood, throwing cash on the table to cover the coffee. You take that job at Cross Technologies, you'll have access to the current operation. I'll give you the historical pattern. Together, we build something federal prosecutors can't ignore. They walked to Ray's truck in silence, the morning sun climbing higher and burning off the last wisps of fog. Ray opened the extended cab, revealing boxes stacked with military precision, each labeled with dates and category codes. Personnel files I photocopied before they were destroyed. HR emails retrieved from dumpsters.
Recordings I made wearing a wire for 18 months before I figured out they'd never change without external pressure. Ray pulled out one box, opening it to reveal folders organized by termination date. Every person in here had the same story. Filed a complaint, got performance reviews that were suddenly negative, terminated within 6 months. The documentation is identical across cases. Same phrases, same justifications, same executive signatures. Marcus pulled out a folder at random. Marcus Mitchell, IT Support Specialist, hired June 2022, terminated September 2022. The performance reviews showed excellence ratings for 3 months, then a sudden shift to needs improvement across all categories the week after he'd filed an OSHA complaint about electrical wiring that didn't meet code specifications. Termination letter signed by Vivian Cross. She signs them all personally. Ray's voice carried the weight of 6 years watching injustice compound. Every single termination.
She reviews the cases, approves the decisions, signs the paperwork. This isn't road managers or overzealous HR. This comes from the top. Marcus photographed the documents with his federal phone, building the evidence chain that would eventually end up in depositions and court filings. I need to copy everything. Can you get these boxes to a secure location where I can spend a few hours digitizing? My garage. Wife's visiting her sister in Atlanta for the week, so the house is empty. I'll help you scan and organize. Ray closed the box, meeting Marcus's eyes directly. You are federal, aren't you? Dole or EEOC, or some agency with actual power to do something about this. Marcus made the calculation in half a second. Ray Mitchell had earned the truth through 6 years of unpaid investigation and evidence collection that rivaled professional work. Department of Labor, Workplace Safety and Retaliation Investigation.
But if you repeat that, I was Marine Corps Intelligence for 12 years. I know how operational security works. Ray extended his hand. Whatever you need, whenever you need it. My nephew and 72 others are counting on someone giving enough of a damn to see this through. They shook on it, the agreement sealed without paperwork or formal authorization. Sometimes alliances formed in parking lots over shared purpose, and those bonds held stronger than any contract. Ray's garage smelled like motor oil and old paper, dust motes dancing in afternoon sunlight that slanted through a high window. Marcus spent the next 4 hours feeding documents through a scanner while Ray organized files and provided context about specific cases. He worked with the methodical precision learned at DOL Training Academy in Dallas. Every document photographed twice, once for clarity, and once with metadata showing timestamp and location. Every file labeled with chain of custody notation. Every witness statement cross-referenced against employment records. This was the unglamorous reality of federal investigation. Not dramatic confrontations, but patient evidence collection. Building cases brick by brick until the weight became undeniable. Ray watched him work, occasionally asking questions. Why photograph the same page twice? First shot proves content. Second shot with metadata proves I didn't fabricate or alter it, shows it was photographed here at this time. Marcus adjusted the scanner lighting. Defense attorneys will try to claim evidence tampering. Can't tamper with what's locked in metadata. You've done this before. 17 investigations over 8 years. 12 resulted in federal consent decrees. 3 led to criminal charges. Marcus moved to the next file, methodical and unhurried. I know how to build cases that survive appeal. The pattern emerged with statistical precision that made denial impossible. 73 black employees over 6 years. Average tenure, 2.3 years, compared to 5.7 for white employees in similar positions. 94% termination rate within 6 months of filing complaints,
compared to 12% for white employees who raised identical concerns. Vivian Cross's signature appeared on 68 of the 73 termination letters. The others were signed by her predecessor, but all postdated her promotion to CEO. She took over in 2018. Ray pulled out a folder containing the transition documentation. First year, termination patterns were normal. Second year, the targeting started. By year 3, it was systematic enough that HR had pre-written templates for the performance reviews. They'd just fill in the name and date. Marcus photographed a template with blank spaces. Employee name continues to demonstrate inability to meet position requirements despite repeated coaching. Performance deficiencies include specific examples. Recommend termination effective date. Jesus. The word escaped before Marcus could contain it. They weaponized the review process. And nobody questioned it because the individual cases looked legitimate. One person getting fired for poor performance, that happens. But aggregate 73 people over 6 years, track the correlation with complaint filing, and the pattern screams discrimination. Ray pulled out his phone, showing Marcus a spreadsheet he'd built. I'm not a statistician, but even I can see that 94% versus 12% isn't random variance. Marcus sent the spreadsheet to his federal email, building the evidence file that would eventually land on Director Chen's desk, and, if they built the case correctly, in front of an administrative law judge. This is enough for preliminary findings, but I need current documentation to prove the pattern's ongoing. Historical evidence shows what happened. Active investigation proves it's still happening. Which is why you take the job. Ray closed the last box. 6 hours of work compressed into organized digital files and chain of custody documentation. Get inside, document current practices, connect the historical pattern to present operations. Then, bring the hammer down. Marcus's phone buzzed. Text from Rebecca Winters. Mr. Thompson, have you had time to consider our offer? Miss Cross would like to meet with you this evening if your schedule permits. He typed a response. I'm interested in discussing the position. 6 p.m. works for me. Where should I meet her? The reply came within seconds. Cross Technologies executive floor. I'll have security clear you at the main entrance. Marcus showed Ray the exchange. Looks like I'm going inside tonight. Friday evening, before the weekend. Gives me the weekend to process what I learn. Then go prepared. Know what you're walking into. Ray pulled out one more folder, this one thicker than the others. This is every piece of information I could find about Vivian Cross personally. Background, career trajectory, public statements, internal memos that made it into the trash. If you're going to work for her, you need to understand her. The folder contained a career built on ruthless efficiency and results-driven management. Vivian Cross had graduated from Stanford with dual degrees in engineering and business, built Cross Technologies from a small medical device manufacturer into a major player in diagnostic equipment, held 37 patents in her name, gave speeches about innovation and disruption, and the necessity of tough decisions in competitive markets. Nowhere in the public record did she mention the 73 people whose careers she'd terminated. The pattern stayed buried beneath success metrics and profit margins. Marcus photographed it all, building a profile that would help him navigate the evening's meeting. Understanding your opponent meant studying their history, their motivations, their blind spots. Vivian Cross believed in meritocracy, while systematically purging employees who questioned her decisions. She championed innovation, while punishing people who identified safety problems. The cognitive dissonance suggested either profound self-deception or calculated malice disguised as business pragmatism. Either way, it made her dangerous. Thank you for this. Marcus gestured at the boxes, the scanned files, the 6 years of work Ray had done without recognition or compensation. Seriously, this investigation would take years without your foundation. Just make sure it counts. Ray's expression held the weight of personal investment that went beyond professional obligation. My nephew still wakes up some nights panicking that he won't make rent. Still questions whether he's actually incompetent like they told him he was. That kind of damage doesn't heal fast, and it doesn't heal without justice. Marcus thought about Riley's red bracelet, the one she'd made to keep him breathing when grief made his lungs forget their function. Sometimes healing required external support, something to hold on to when internal strength faltered. Justice might not fix everything Ray's nephew had lost, but it could provide the validation necessary to rebuild what Cross Technologies had torn down. It'll count. Marcus made the promise, knowing he'd move heaven and earth to keep it. Every person in those boxes gets their name in the federal filing. Every termination gets reviewed.
And Vivian Cross answers for every signature she put on every termination letter. He left Ray's garage with his federal phone loaded with evidence, and his civilian phone showing the address for tonight's meeting. The drive back to pick up Riley from after school took 30 minutes through traffic that gave him time to mentally prepare for the performance he'd need to deliver. Play the role of grateful security consultant, humble and professional, accepting the job offer with appropriate appreciation. Get access to the executive floor, the personnel files, the security protocols. Build relationships with employees who'd witnessed the pattern but couldn't speak up without risking their own terminations. Document everything with the same thoroughness he'd brought to evidence collection in the supermarket. Riley was waiting outside the after-school program with her purple bear and a drawing she'd made during art time. Marcus recognized his own stick figure representation, complete with red bracelet, standing between two other figures, while a third figure with long hair and a triangular dress stood behind him. "That's from Megamart," Riley pointed at each element. "That's you being brave, and those are the bad men falling down. And that's the lady you saved. Miss Patterson said I could enter it in the school art show if you say it's okay." Marcus studied the drawing, seeing his daughter's interpretation of violence sanitized through 8-year-old artistic lens. The bad men had X's for eyes, cartoon unconscious. The lady's face showed surprise rather than terror, and his own figure stood with arms outstretched, protective rather than aggressive. "You can enter it if you want. It's a good drawing." Marcus knelt to eye level. "How was the rest of your day? Any more problems with kids saying mean things?" Emma apologized. She said her mom was wrong about janitors being dumb, and actually her uncle is a janitor and he's really smart. Riley grinned, gap-toothed pride evident. "So I said sorry for pushing, and now we're friends again." "Good. I'm proud of you for working it out." Marcus stood, taking Riley's hand as they walked toward the car. "I have a meeting tonight with the lady from the drawing, the one I saved. She wants to offer me a job working at her company." Riley's eyes went wide. "Are you going to take it?" "I think so. It pays better than what I'm doing now, which means we can do more things together. Maybe move to a nicer apartment." Marcus unlocked the car, helping Riley into her booster seat. "But it also means spending time around people who weren't very nice before. So I need you to tell me if that seems like a good idea." Riley considered this with her usual gravity. "Mama used to say sorry is just a word. What matters is if people do better next time." Riley swung her legs against the booster seat. "So if the lady does better, then maybe it's okay you work there?" The wisdom delivered in Kendra's voice, filtered through their daughter's interpretation, hit Marcus square in the chest. "Your mama was right about that, too." "Then you should take the job. Not because the lady deserves forgiveness, but because we deserve the better apartment and the extra money for books and stuff." Riley clutched her purple bear. "And maybe while you're there, you can teach them to be nicer to people, like you teach me."
Marcus met Riley's eyes in the rearview mirror as he pulled out of the parking lot. That's exactly what I'm planning to do, baby girl. Exactly that. Cross Technologies occupied 12 floors of a glass and steel tower that caught the Friday evening sunset like a mirror reflecting ambition back at itself. Marcus arrived 15 minutes early, using the time to observe patterns. Security rotations every 40 minutes.
Employee badge access required at 3 checkpoints. Cameras covering every angle except a small blind spot near the loading dock entrance. The same vulnerability he'd noted in his rejected assessment 6 months ago. Still unfixed. Still exploitable. Rebecca Winters met him at the main entrance, her professional armor firmly in place.
Mr. Thompson, thank you for coming. Ms. Cross is in her office on the executive floor.
The executive floor smelled like expensive coffee and new carpet, that manufactured cleanliness suggesting cleaning crews worked while employees slept. The elevator ride lasted 43 seconds, long enough for Rebecca to deliver what sounded like a prepared speech.
I want to be direct with you. The board pushed hard for this hire. They believe your presence demonstrates our commitment to valuing all employees regardless of their position. Ms. Cross initially resisted.
Marcus kept his expression neutral. Because she doesn't want someone around who saw her vulnerable. Because she doesn't trust that your heroics weren't calculated to leverage employment. Rebecca's honesty landed with the impact of a confession. She thinks you staged the rescue to create obligation. With my 8-year-old daughter watching, I calculated a hostage situation to manipulate a CEO I'd met once 6 months ago into offering me a job. Marcus let the absurdity hang in the air. That's either genius-level long-term planning or paranoid narcissism, assuming everything revolves around her. Rebecca's mouth twitched. I'll let you draw your own conclusions after meeting her. The executive floor spread out in tasteful minimalism, glass walls, modern furniture, artwork that probably cost more than Marcus's annual salary. Vivian's office occupied the corner, with floor-to-ceiling windows offering panoramic city view. She stood at those windows now, silhouetted against the dying light, her posture radiating the controlled tension of someone preparing for an unpleasant negotiation. Mr. Thompson. Vivian turned as Rebecca announced him, her expression composed but wary. Please, sit. Marcus chose the chair that kept both the door and Vivian in his peripheral vision, old security training asserting itself automatically. Ms. Cross? I'll be direct. The board believes hiring you sends a positive message about Cross Technologies' values. I believe it creates a complicated dynamic where gratitude and professional hierarchy become entangled. Vivian sat across from him, maintaining the desk as a barrier between them. However, I can't deny you demonstrated expertise we genuinely need. So I'm willing to try this arrangement if you can maintain appropriate boundaries. Appropriate boundaries meaning I don't mention that you dismissed my security assessment 6 months ago, then got targeted for kidnapping exactly as that assessment predicted. Marcus kept his tone professional, factual. Or that you called me one of these people when my equipment cart brushed your desk. Vivian's jaw tightened. I don't recall that specific phrasing. I have excellent memory for details. Comes with the security background. Marcus pulled out his phone, scrolling to a note file. September 23rd, 2:47 p.m. You were on a call with someone named Thomas. Your exact words were, "Why do they keep sending me these people? The slow ones who can't follow simple instructions." I was configuring your network firewall at the time. The color drained from Vivian's face. That was a private conversation. In a room where I was working, within earshot, not particularly private. Marcus set his phone down. But yes, I imagine you didn't realize I registered as a person who might hear and remember your words. Rebecca shifted uncomfortably near the door, clearly wanting to intervene, but recognizing this confrontation needed to happen without mediation. Vivian took a breath, visibly recomposing herself. "You're right. That was inappropriate and demeaning. I apologize." Apologies are words. I'm more interested in whether the attitude behind those words has changed. Marcus kept his tone level, professional. 6 months ago, you spoke about people like me as if we were interchangeable parts that malfunctioned. Now you're offering me executive floor access and asking me to protect the same company that treated me as disposable. So tell me, Ms. Cross, is this genuine recognition of value or performative diversity to appease a board concerned about optics? Marcus leaned forward slightly. Because if it's the latter, neither of us benefits from wasting time on this arrangement. I don't know if my attitudes have changed. Vivian's honesty came wrapped in defensive brittleness. I know that watching someone risk their life to save mine twice has made me question assumptions I didn't realize I was making. But changing deeply ingrained patterns takes more than a week of uncomfortable self-reflection. The admission surprised Marcus enough that he reassessed his initial read. Vivian Cross wasn't pretending transformation. She was acknowledging the messy reality that growth happened slowly, painfully, with setbacks and resistance. Then here's my condition for taking this job. Marcus met her eyes directly. You want me to review security protocols and improve executive protection. I'll do that. But I also need access to personnel files, HR complaint records, and termination documentation going back 6 years. Full access, no restrictions. Vivian's expression hardened. That's far outside the scope of security consultation. Security threats aren't just external. Disgruntled employees, systematic grievances, patterns of discrimination, those create internal vulnerabilities that manifest in sabotage, leaks, and hostile work environments. Marcus delivered the justification smoothly, each word factual and defensible. I can't protect your executives if I don't understand the landscape of internal tensions. Those files are confidential personnel matters, and I'll treat them with appropriate discretion. But I won't take a job that hamstrings my ability to do it effectively. Marcus stood. If that's a deal breaker, I appreciate your time. Rebecca can show me out. Vivian stood as well, tension crackling in the space between them. You're using your leverage. I'm establishing the terms under which I can deliver what you're paying me to deliver. Marcus headed toward the door, calling the bluff. Your choice, Ms. Cross. Wait! The word came out sharp, command mixed with frustration. You'll sign comprehensive NDAs. Anything you find in those files stays confidential unless it poses immediate safety risk. Marcus turned back. Agreed. With one addition. I report findings to you and the board. Not just you. Pattern recognition in HR practices requires executive oversight to prevent institutional blindness. You want to report to the board? Vivian's laugh held no humor. You're not just leveraging employment. You're positioning yourself as a check on my authority. I'm positioning myself to be effective. Marcus returned to the chair, recognizing victory when it appeared. You can veto my access and hire someone who'll do surface-level security reviews. Or you can trust that I'm better at this than whoever's been doing it previously, and that better outcomes require uncomfortable transparency. Vivian sank back into her chair, the fight draining from her posture. Fine. Rebecca, draft the NDAs and arrange HR access for Mr. Thompson. Full personnel files, 6 years back. Rebecca nodded, already typing on her tablet. I'll have everything ready by Monday. Mr. Thompson, your office will be on this floor, down the hall from mine. Executive floor placement.
Marcus let the observation hang, unadorned. The board insisted. Vivian's tone carried resigned irritation. Something about demonstrating that all positions have value regardless of previous role. So I'm the diversity hire with symbolic corner office. Marcus stood again, this time with finality. Let me be clear about something, Miss Cross. I don't need performative validation. I need resources to do the job. You want me on the executive floor because it's good optics? Fine. But I'll earn my presence here by delivering results that make the optics irrelevant.
Something shifted in Vivian's expression. Possibly respect, possibly just recognition that Marcus wouldn't perform gratitude for opportunities he'd earned through competence. Fair enough. We'll schedule a proper onboarding meeting for Monday, 9 a.m. Marcus left with Rebecca, who stayed silent until the elevator doors closed and they were descending away from executive authority. That was either brave or suicidal. Rebecca's voice carried grudging admiration. Most people don't dictate terms to Vivian Cross. Most people aren't being hired to fix problems while the person who created those problems watches. Marcus touched the red bracelet, grounding himself. I need her to understand I'm not here for her approval. Message received, I'd say. Rebecca pulled out a business card. My direct line. Use it if you need anything. Or if executive dynamics get complicated. Marcus pocketed the card, already planning how he'd leverage HR access to document the pattern Ray's files had revealed. Monday would begin the delicate work of gathering current evidence while maintaining the appearance of routine security review. His federal phone buzzed as he reached the parking garage. Director Chen. Status update needed. Call when secure. Marcus waited until he was inside his car with the doors locked before dialing. I'm in. Full personnel file access, 6 years back. Start date, Monday. Jesus, Thompson. You work fast. Director Chen's voice carried the mix of approval and concern that marked complex operations. What did you have to give up to get that access? Comprehensive NDAs, an agreement to report findings to both CEO and board. Also accepted an office on the executive floor, which positions me as highly visible. Visible is dangerous when you're undercover. Visible is necessary when the investigation requires executive-level documentation. Marcus started the engine, letting it idle while they talked. Ray Mitchell collected 6 years of historical evidence. 73 terminations, all black employees, all following complaint filings. I need current HR files to prove the pattern's ongoing. Ray Mitchell. Director Chen's tone shifted. The security supervisor who called me 3 years ago claiming systematic discrimination. I told him to file formal EEOC complaints. He did. All 73 employees filed. All were dismissed as individual performance issues with insufficient evidence of pattern. Marcus pulled out of the parking garage, merging into evening traffic. That's why he started collecting his own documentation. 6 banker boxes worth, all digitized now. I'm sending you the full archive tonight. If this goes to hearing, Mitchell's going to be a key witness. His nephew was one of the 73? Number 1, chronologically. Fired 6 months after you told Ray to use official channels. Marcus let that implication settle. The system failed these people. They filed complaints properly, followed procedures, and got punished for it. Now we build the case that makes ignoring them impossible. Director Chen's silence carried the weight of federal bureaucracy confronting its own inadequacies. Send me everything. I'll start building the preliminary findings report. But Marcus, be careful. Vivian Cross is smart, connected, and she's already suspicious of your motives. One mistake, one slip in cover,
and this whole investigation collapses.
I know what's at stake.
Marcus thought about Riley's drawing, his stick figure standing protective between danger and the innocent. I'll be careful, but I won't be slow. 73 people have been waiting years for someone to care. I'm not making them wait longer than necessary. He ended the call and pointed his car toward home, where Riley would be waiting with her purple bear and questions about whether he'd taken the job.
The sun had fully set now, streetlights creating pools of illumination in the gathering dark. His phone rang again. Unknown number, local area code. Thompson. Mr. Thompson, this is Devin Mitchell. Uncle Ray said you wanted to talk? The voice carried the careful neutrality of someone who'd learned not to hope too hard. I'm on break at Best Buy. Can you meet me here? Marcus checked the dashboard clock. 7:15. Riley was spending the evening at her grandparents' house. Barbara had insisted on keeping her overnight when she heard about Marcus's new job, wanting to give him space to focus. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Tech department? I'll be at the phone display counter. Best Buy occupied a sprawling retail space that hummed with fluorescent lighting and the ambient noise of customers debating electronics purchases. Marcus found Marcus Mitchell exactly where promised, a young black man in his mid-20s wearing the blue polo that marked retail employment. Ray's nephew had his uncle's eyes, watchful, intelligent, carrying the weight of experience that aged people faster than years alone could manage. Mr. Thompson. Marcus Mitchell extended his hand. Uncle Ray says you're investigating Crosstech. They shook, and Marcus guided them toward a quieter corner near the laptop displays. I'm gathering information about employment patterns. Your uncle mentioned you were terminated after filing safety complaints. September 2022, 3 weeks after I reported electrical wiring that didn't meet code. Mitchell's voice stayed level, professional, but his hands clenched and unclenched. They said my performance had declined, gave me reviews showing I'd gone from excellent to needs improvement in every category. In 3 weeks. In 3 weeks. After 3 months of excellent ratings. Mitchell pulled out his phone, showing Marcus screenshots of performance reviews. I kept copies of everything, knew something was wrong when my supervisor started documenting minor mistakes that had never mattered before. Marcus photographed the reviews, adding them to his growing evidence file. The electrical wiring you reported. What happened with that complaint? HR said they'd investigated and found no code violations. Facilities management signed off that everything met specifications. Mitchell's jaw tightened. 2 months after I got fired, there was a small electrical fire in that same server room. Nobody got hurt, but it could have been bad. Could have killed the 3 techs working late shift. You reported it to OSHA? Filed a complaint. They did an inspection, found minor violations, issued a citation. Crosstech paid the fine, and that was it. Mitchell's expression held the bitter understanding of someone who'd learned that justice was a luxury working people couldn't afford. $5,000 fine. I lost my job, my career trajectory, my ability to pay rent. They paid $5,000 and moved on. Marcus felt rage settling cold and hard in his chest. You're number 1 in a pattern of 73 people who experienced identical treatment. All black, all filed complaints, all terminated within 6 months. Mitchell's eyes widened. 73? Your uncle's been documenting since you were fired, collecting evidence, building the pattern. Marcus showed him Ray's spreadsheet on his phone. You're not alone. You were never alone. They made you think it was personal performance failure, but it was systematic targeting. I thought, Mitchell's voice cracked, I thought maybe they were right. Maybe I wasn't good enough. Maybe I'd imagined being competent. That's what they count on. Gaslight you into believing their lie, make you question your own reality. Marcus pulled up the performance reviews side by side. 3 months of excellence, then sudden precipitous decline. This isn't real. This is manufactured justification for predetermined termination. Mitchell stared at the evidence, tears welling in eyes that had probably cried themselves dry over the past months. Can you fix this? Can you make them acknowledge what they did? I'm going to try. Starting Monday, I have access to current HR files. I'll document that the pattern's continuing. Then I'll file federal findings that make this public record. Marcus met Mitchell's gaze directly. I can't promise it'll be fast. Federal investigations take time. But I can promise you'll get your name cleared, and everyone who did this to you will be held accountable. I don't care about my name anymore. Mitchell wiped his eyes. I care about making sure they can't do this to anyone else. That nobody else has to wake up at 3 a.m. wondering if they're actually worthless. The pain in those words landed like a physical blow. Marcus thought about Riley's red bracelet, the one she'd made to keep him breathing when grief made his lungs fail. Some damage went deeper than career loss. Some wounds required more than legal victories to heal. You're not worthless. You were competent enough that Cross Technologies hired you. Competent enough that you identified safety violations their own facilities team missed. Marcus pulled out his business card, the federal one with Department of Labor seal and official contact information. And here's something else to remember. Your worth isn't determined by people who profit from your silence. It's determined by whether you speak truth, even when truth costs you everything. You spoke truth. That makes you valuable. He handed over the card. This is who I actually am, what I'm actually doing there. And you're the reason I'm doing it. Mitchell took the card, understanding dawning across his features. You're federal. Workplace safety inspector conducting undercover investigation. Everything you tell me becomes evidence. Everything they did to you gets documented in formal findings. Marcus touched the red bracelet unconsciously. Your uncle spent 6 years collecting proof because official channels failed you. I'm the official channels coming back to finish what they should have done the first time. Does my uncle know you're federal? He figured it out. Didn't need confirmation to start helping. Marcus smiled slightly. He's good at reading situations. Comes from the military training. He never gave up believing someone would care eventually. Mitchell clutched the business card like a lifeline. Even when I told him to stop wasting his time, that powerful people always win, he said someone, somewhere, would be brave enough to look at the evidence. Your uncle's the brave one. 6 years building a case without resources or protection. Marcus checked his watch. 7:45. Time to get Riley. I should go, but Marcus, can I call you if I need clarification on anything? Specific incidents, timeline details, names of supervisors involved? Anytime, day or night. Mitchell's voice steadied, purpose replacing the earlier fragility. Whatever you need to nail these bastards. Marcus left Best Buy with his evidence file growing heavier and his resolve hardening into something diamond sharp. But Riley needed him tonight, needed to hear about the job, needed the reassurance of routine. He called Barbara. I'm heading over to pick up Riley. Actually, Marcus, she just fell asleep on the couch watching a documentary about Marie Curie. Barbara's voice carried gentle understanding. Why don't you let her stay? You sound exhausted, and tomorrow's Saturday. You can pick her up for breakfast. Marcus hesitated, then accepted the kindness. Thank you, Barbara. Tell her I love her when she wakes up. She knows, sweetheart. She always knows. The drive home took 12 minutes through streets that had emptied as people settled into evening routines. The apartment felt too quiet without Riley's chatter.
but the solitude gave Marcus space to process the weight of what Monday would bring.
I got the job, baby girl. We start Monday. Marcus helped her into the booster seat, securing the straps with practiced efficiency. New office, better pay, more time for us. And you're going to teach them to be nicer to people? That's the plan. Marcus met her eyes in the rearview mirror as he pulled into traffic. But teaching grown-ups is harder than teaching kids. They've had more years to practice being wrong. Riley giggled. Mama used to say the best teachers are the ones who make you want to learn instead of making you feel dumb. Your mama was the best teacher I ever had. Marcus navigated toward their apartment, feeling Kendra's presence in Riley's words. She taught me that doing what's right matters more than doing what's easy. Is the new job the right thing? I think so. It helps people who got hurt. That's always right. Marcus microwaved leftover pasta, eating standing at the counter while reviewing his mental checklist for Monday.
The apartment felt hollow without Riley's presence, but Barbara was right. He needed this time to prepare.
His phone buzzed. Text from Barbara with a photo. Riley asleep on their couch, purple bear clutched tight, Mr. Curie book open on her chest. Text below. She made me promise you'd come for pancakes tomorrow. 8 a.m.? Marcus smiled, typing back. I'll bring the syrup. Back at the apartment, Mr. Whiskers expressed his displeasure at their delayed return through strategic ankle attacks and aggressive purring demands. Riley fed him while Marcus unpacked dinner onto plates that didn't match but served their purpose. Daddy, if you're making lots of money now, can we get a house with a yard? Riley arranged her dinosaur nuggets in size order before eating them. Mr. Whiskers wants to catch bugs outside. Maybe eventually. Houses are expensive and we need to save up. Marcus bit into his burger, tasting celebration mixed with the metallic tang of deferred dreams. But we can look at nicer apartments. Ones where the heat works all winter and the landlord fixes things faster. And a room where I can do science experiments? Riley's eyes held the hopeful gleam of a child who'd inherited her mother's love of discovery. A room for science experiments sounds perfect. Marcus imagined Riley in a space dedicated to learning, mixing baking soda volcanoes and growing crystals, continuing Kendra's legacy of curiosity made tangible. Your mama would love that. Riley nodded seriously. She'd say science is asking questions about the world, and you're asking questions about cross-technologies. So you're both scientists. The observation landed with the force of profound simplicity. Marcus had never conceptualized his investigation as science, but Riley had identified the fundamental similarity. Both required observing patterns, gathering evidence, testing hypotheses, arriving at conclusions supported by data. You're absolutely right. I'm doing workplace science, investigating patterns in how companies treat employees. Marcus pulled out his phone, showing Riley the spreadsheet Ray had built. See these numbers? They tell a story about unfairness. Riley studied the screen with fierce concentration. 94% is way bigger than 12%.
That's the problem. Black employees get fired 94% of the time after complaining. White employees only 12%. That's not fair or random. That's really mean. Riley's brow furrowed. Why would they do that? Sometimes people in power want to stay powerful. When someone points out they're doing something wrong, it's easier to fire that person than fix the problem. Marcus set his phone aside.
But scientists like your mama and workplace investigators like me, we document the evidence until it's impossible to ignore.
Then what happens?
Then federal judges make them fix it. Make them hire back the people they fired, pay them the money they lost, change their policies so it can't happen again.
Marcus watched Riley process this, seeing Kendra's analytical mind working through their daughter's features.
Justice takes time, but it happens.
Good. Riley finished her last dinosaur nugget.
Because if they were mean to 73 people, they should have to say sorry and make it right. After dinner, Marcus supervised bath time, while Riley narrated the entire Megamart incident to Mr. Whiskers, who tolerated the story with feline indifference. Then came pajamas, teeth brushing, and the bedtime ritual they'd maintained since Kendra's death. 3 books, 2 songs, 1 promise.
Read me the science one. Riley handed Marcus a children's book about Marie Curie, its pages dog-eared from repeated readings. Marcus read about perseverance in the face of discrimination, about a woman who'd changed the world despite institutions that tried to keep her invisible. The parallels weren't lost on him. Curie had documented her evidence too, building proof that couldn't be dismissed. After the book came songs, Kendra's favorites, the ones she'd hummed while cooking dinner or driving Riley to daycare. Marcus's voice cracked on the high notes, but Riley didn't care.
She said, "That's right, baby girl. After the weekend. Tomorrow I start collecting evidence that forces them to be better. There's a difference." Marcus kissed her forehead. "Sweet dreams, scientist."
Sweet dreams, workplace investigator.
Marcus closed Riley's door and moved to the kitchen, where his federal phone waited with the weight of 6 years' evidence demanding transfer to official channels. He spent the next 3 hours uploading files to the DOL secure server, organizing documentation by category, building the digital case file that would eventually land on an administrative law judge's desk. Ray Mitchell's meticulous record-keeping made the work easier. Every termination documented with hire date, complaint date, performance review dates, and termination date. Every HR email cataloged with sender, recipient, and content summary. Every witness statement dated and signed. The pattern emerged so clearly that anyone looking could see it, which meant everyone who could have looked had chosen not to. Marcus built a summary document, statistical analysis that would serve as preliminary findings. Cross Technologies demonstrates systematic pattern of retaliatory termination targeting Black employees who file safety complaints or discrimination reports. Over a 6-year period, 73 Black employees terminated within 6 months of complaint filing, representing 94% termination rate. Comparable white employees filing identical complaints show 12% termination rate. Disparity statistically significant beyond random variance. CEO Vivian Cross personally signed 68 of 73 termination letters. Pattern suggests institutional practice rather than isolated incidents. He sent the summary to Director Chen with a note. Historical pattern documented. Begin gathering current evidence Monday. Recommend preparing subpoena for full HR files if internal access proves restricted. The reply came within minutes, despite the late hour. Excellent work. Proceed carefully. History evidence is strong, but we need current documentation to prove ongoing violation. Don't expose your position prematurely. He sent the summary to Director Chen with a note. Historical pattern documented. Begin gathering current evidence Monday. Recommend preparing subpoena for full HR files if internal access proves restricted. The reply came within minutes, despite the late hour. Excellent work. Proceed carefully. Historical evidence is strong, but we need current documentation to prove ongoing violation. Don't expose your position prematurely. Marcus locked the federal phone away and stood at Riley's doorway. She slept with her purple bear tucked close and Mr. Whiskers curled at her feet, both protectors standing guard through the night. The red bracelet on her small wrist caught the hallway light, rough fibers holding love and courage in equal measure. He touched his own bracelet, feeling Kendra's presence in the gesture. Some promises transcend death. Some debts outlast grief. And some battles are worth fighting precisely because they're not your own. Monday morning, he'd walk into Cross Technologies as a security consultant. By Monday evening, he'd have access to personnel files that would prove 73 people weren't crazy, weren't incompetent,
weren't disposable. Devin Mitchell would get his name back. Ray Mitchell would see 6 years of work validated. And 71 others would learn that someone finally gave a damn.
Marcus climbed into bed, exhaustion pulling him under almost immediately. Outside, the city hummed with its eternal rhythm. Inside, Riley breathed steady and safe, and the red bracelet pressed against his wrist like a promise kept.
We're bigger than the sky, he thought as sleep claimed him. Big enough to hold grief and purpose, fear and courage. 73 names, and one daughter's faith that her daddy could make the world a little more fair.
Big enough for justice. The red bracelet pressed against his wrist as Marcus finally climbed into bed, exhausted but unable to sleep. His mind already ran through Monday's strategy: arrive early, review security protocols to establish legitimate purpose, then gradually shift toward personnel file access. Build relationships with HR staff, identify potential allies, document the current landscape before making any moves that might alert Vivian to investigative intent. Outside, the city hummed with late-night traffic and distant sirens. Inside, Riley breathed steady and safe. Mr. Whiskers purred protection, and Marcus lay awake, feeling the weight of promises made to the living and the dead. We're bigger than the sky, big enough to hold grief and purpose, fear and courage, the past's pain and the future's possibility. Big enough to carry 73 people's hope for justice through whatever came next.